suppose for me, what happened was I was living in a situation where it was an abusive relationship for many years, and I was kind of denying it to myself as well as to everybody else. It would get bad and then it would get better, and then it would get bad and then it would get better. And a few times I had kind of decided I was going to get out of it, and then I didn't, because it was reconciliation and stuff. But it was always just never going to get permanently better. And then there was a couple of incidents where the police were called.
My name's Colin Stainton. I'm a victim of male domestic abuse. It happened, a while ago, but it took me a while to realise that actually I'd been through that. I had no self-confidence, I had no self-esteem. I was belittled, I was put down, I was called names, I was told I was useless, and I felt ugly, I felt fat, I felt completely worthless.
Back in March I was assaulted by my ex-wife, quite violently, and I was quite shaken. When I got home, I rang the police, and we had a long interview about the situation that I was in. My ex-wife was then cautioned for the incident.
I've been living with this person for almost 20 years. Things from, I think, very early on weren't too good, and I didn't realise how bad they were actually until quite recently, and I kept thinking that it would be better one day, or we would get through this, and can't be like this all the time.
There is a Home Office definition in relation to what domestic abuse is. It is any abusive behaviour, assaults between intimate partners, but it does expand to family members. The definition is broad, and although predominantly it is women that do come forward to report domestic abuse to the authorities and support agencies, there is a large number of males out there who are suffering in silence, who are victims of abuse.
There's very little research. Some statistics that are used would say there are 1 in 6 men who are victims of abuse, but you have to question those statistics.
What we're finding is there's actually a massive under-reporting, so really the statistics are not a true figure of how many people are out there actually suffering abuse. So I don't really like to go to statistics, I like to go to the actual facts and figures of the people actually dealing with on a daily basis.
There's a lot of under-reporting, and that can be because men don't feel that they'll be believed, or they're embarrassed, or they're ashamed, or that there's no point reporting it because police and other agencies will automatically take the side of the female, for example.
We're supposed to be the strong ones, we're the alpha male, we're the ones who are supposed to be in control, we're supposed to be strong. Men don't cry, you're told as an early age. It's all learned behaviour, you get told these things, not knowing why or if it's true, but we do them.
We were asked by funders about whether we could run a specific service, and in fact why we weren't supporting male victims. So what we decided to do was to look around to see if there was any other organisation who we could work in partnership with, but we didn't find any other organisation. So what we decided to do was to set up a pilot which we called the ADAM project.
It stands for Action Against Domestic Abuse for Men. So it's seen as a natural extension of the work that Women's Aid had been doing for 30 odd years, to then change the constitution to be able to also support men. But it was decided to then set it up as a dedicated standalone project so that it looked and felt different from the work that they do in the rest of the organisation.
Well, we've received a lot of publicity, but I think that many men are still frightened about coming forward, but we do get many inquiries. We have a dedicated worker, and we've supported so far around 60 male victims of abuse.
It's given us an opportunity to signpost males to somewhere where they can actually go and put their lives back on track. They can put things right for themselves. Prior to that, what they would have had was support from a specialist officer who had limited time really to get back in touch with them and just to reassure them really how the case was going. They wouldn't have had time to have sat down with them to see how their finances were going, to see how they were settling themselves back into work and whether they were getting the right support in respects to housing and things like that.
The police officers asked me if it was okay to refer me to Adam Project, and he passed the details on, and then they got in touch with me, and then I basically got weekly support from Andy for giving me some help and making sure he can help me to get a council house and stuff like that. I mean, I think what the main difference it made to me is this would probably have been another time when I was going to get out and didn't do it. And it made it, just having that support and that kind of push made it happen.
Actually, wandering around the libraries, and I came across the library brochure book that had the Adams Project name on it, and they listened to my story and they were very understanding and sympathetic, and they made me feel like I wasn't the only one. Once the kind of paperwork was in place and they knew who I was and where I was coming from, and then relationship between the project and myself kind of took a much more solid form. And I know Andy's always been there to help me, an encouragement and a push in the right direction. If I needed, I was pick up the phone or leave a message for him, and he would get back to me. And there were times when we missed each other, I couldn't get to the phone, and so he would just leave a message, and that was good. Where he was more aware of the forms that needed to be filled in, and letting know the council this, and really the practical things that I would have never known about and not had experience of because I never needed it.
First and foremost, they gave me advice. Secondly, they made me feel that I wasn't alone in this situation. And thirdly, they also gave me the opportunity to realise that it just wasn't me. It was just a series of circumstances. I internalised a lot of the problems initially, but they certainly helped me tremendously to start with, to just pick up the pieces, because I was distraught. I was looking over my shoulder all the time. I used to have regular phone calls on a Tuesday just to see how I was, and it was pretty awful to start with. Things are on the mend now, slowly. But there's always the worry in the background that she might do something similar again and take the children off me, which was the real problem. Because they said to me, this is what you need to do in those situations. And I suppose I would have got similar advice from my friends and family, but it was good coming from them, because then I knew that was reaffirmed and that was the right course of action to make.
With the refuge work that we do, which is women-only temporary accommodation, we often find that some of the mothers coming in were in the refuge as a child. And we've had a case of a male victim who was in the refuge with his mother, and he has become a victim of abuse, and he came back to us so that we could support him. So that's something new that we're seeing.
When I was a child, my mum took me from my home into a refuge through domestic violence. We got rehoused out of the end of it. In June, I was sexually assaulted. As soon as I came back to Leicester that day that it happened, I reported it. The police were really understanding. They reassured me that this happens all the time with males, not just females. Referred me to Women's Aid. So they've helped me with housing. They've helped me with kitting out my new flat that I've just got. They've helped me with emotional support. They're going to help me during the case as well, when the time comes. They've explained every step of the way of how they're going to support me.
It is a difficult subject. It's a difficult area of domestic abuse to get men to come forward. But once they have come forward, and once we've made the referrals, we the feedback we're getting is that the support's there and the confidence is there.
And with the Adam Project, I would like to think that any man who feels that they may be a victim feel able to contact us to get the support that's ready for them.
Feeling a bit more confident now. I'm feeling a bit more comfortable. And I do feel now that if that same situation was to happen again, that I would handle it in a much stronger way, a much better way, simply because of the support I've had.
I think it's brilliant, to be fair. It takes a lot for a man to obviously open up and say, this is what's happened to me. And for that support to be there for you and welcome you with open arms it's fantastic.
And I really think that if I hadn't got involved with Adam Project, I would still be sitting in that situation. And the way I see my future at the minute, I mean, it's financially not brilliant at the minute, but I've got a door that I can shut, and I'm away from that situation, and I can get on with my life.
So let's hope that there are more projects like this, and more widely publicised, and like men don't have to tolerate this abuse, and to recognise that it is abuse and it's not acceptable and it shouldn't happen.